Hi, this is Amy Romeo from the jewelry making and craft blog, amyromeo.com, and on this channel I like to share fun and easy jewelry making and craft projects. Today in this video I have a really fun project for you. It is my Taco Keychain made from faux leather, heat transfer vinyl, and a Cricut. I'm going to walk you through this project step by step. It's a really fun one, and you're going to love having a Taco Keychain on your keyring for Cinco de Mayo or any Taco Tuesday. So if you're ready to learn how to make this fun Taco Keychain using your Cricut, let's get started. So let's start by going over the tools and materials we're going to be using to make this really cute Taco Keychain with faux leather, heat transfer vinyl, and a Cricut. I'll be using the Cricut Maker today, but you could also use the Maker 3, the Explore Air 2, the Explore 3, or even the Cricut Joy, because all 5 of those machines come standard with the fine point blade, which is what I use to cut faux leather. You don't need a special blade to cut faux leather for this project or for the majority of the projects that I have here on my channel. The faux leather that I'm using, you can buy faux leather in sheets or rolls. I buy a lot on Amazon and also on Etsy. This particular color is a sheet from one of my favorite faux leather suppliers on Etsy. I'll link to this for you and all the supplies I use for this project, but I don't want you to feel limited. It's a taco and you can have some fun with it. So keep in mind, there are so many different yellows, tans. Really just use your imagination and pick a yellow that you like. This will be for the taco shell. And then there are 4 layers of heat transfer vinyl inside of our taco. There's a tomato, there's a beef or a bean layer, a lettuce layer, and a cheese. So I'll link to all these colors that I've used. This color is not really red like a tomato, it's more like a hibiscus color. Again, have some fun with it and pick your own colors. I'll be heat pressing the vinyl onto the faux leather keychain using my Easy Press Mini. I'll set it to the low setting. You can also use a regular Easy Press. I recommend setting it to about 265 degrees. I'll be using my heat pressing pad to protect my surface, and then a cover sheet. This is a Teflon sheet that I've cut down to size, but you could also use butcher paper or parchment paper. So for this project, I'll be using the Cricut Purple Strong Grip Mat to cut the faux leather, and I'll use the green Standard Grip Mat to cut the vinyl. If you have the Cricut Joy, you can use that little green mat that comes with the Joy. It'll work just fine. And then we'll use some blue painter's tape to tape the faux leather down to the mat to help us get a really good cut. I'll use some craft scissors. I also like these little 4-inch curved scissors for trimming up any fuzzy edges of faux leather. I'll be using a weeding tool. I like to use a pin pen or the Cricut weeding hook. That works really well. And then to glue the keychain, because this is a keychain that folds over and we attach the key ring, I'll be using some Fabri-Tac glue, but you could use any good fabric glue or craft glue. I also really like the Barely Art glue. I love the little precision nozzle here that lets you glue small areas. So any good fabric glue will work. The key ring I'm using is a 1 1/4 inch split key ring. I buy these on Amazon. This is a silver one, and you can see that I've also used a gold colored one. Those are really fun. And then to attach a little tassel, if you want to attach a tassel, I'll be using a 10mm jump ring. And then the tassels, these are just faux suede, and they're on Amazon in lots of different sizes and colors. And they have the different metal caps as well. So these have silver metal caps and these have gold. So just match up your tassel to your key ring and your jump ring hardware. And then to attach the tassel, I'll just be using some flat nose jewelry making pliers that I use when I make earrings. So let me show you how to get the SVG from my shop, and then we'll start uploading it to Cricut Design Space. I'll show you how to cut out all the mats and we'll make this fun keychain. So to make this project, you'll want to get the SVG for the keychain from my SVG shop. I have hundreds of SVGs in my shop for keychains and earrings. At the time I'm recording this, I don't have the SVG for this project in my shop yet, but by the time you're watching this video, it will be there. You can click on the link here on the screen or get the link in the description. It'll bring you to a product page, just like my taco earrings SVG, and you'll see that you can either choose a personal use version or you can choose a small commercial use version, which gives you a commercial use license to sell physical products made from my designs. Then you'll check out and you'll receive an email and you will download the SVG folder. The folder will be zipped and you will need to unzip it before you can upload the unzipped SVG file to Cricut Design Space. So starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, we'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where your unzipped SVG file is for this project. Then it will appear here in your recent uploads row, and you'll click on it to select it and then click Add to Canvas. And you'll see the little taco design here, and it's just 5 layers. The bottom layer is faux leather and the others are heat transfer vinyl, and they're all stacked a little bit differently. I'll show you why when we assemble this. Basically, it's so that we don't have the vinyl coming all the way to the edge of the taco shell, and we can get a nice tight glue seal when we fold over this top part of the taco and create our keychain. So if you're using the Cricut Joy, you will need to size this down a little to fit on the Joy size mat. If you're using the Joy, I recommend getting that 12-inch mat so you can cut this SVG at full size. But I'm using the Maker today, so I will go ahead and click the Make It button. I'm cutting on a mat. And now we see our 5 layers come into Design Space. Now these, all the inside layers, the meat and the cheese, they're all heat transfer vinyl, and you could put them on one mat to cut them if you'd like. But when I tried that, I got confused and I cut the wrong colors on the wrong layers. So I'm going to show you the way I ended up doing it the second time, which is just cutting each mat one at a time using my desired vinyl color. Now normally I tell you to go through every mat at first and press that mirror toggle on. For this particular design, and only for this design, because there's something unique about the way the faux leather layer is set up, we're only going to mirror our heat transfer vinyl mats. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining why, because it just sounds confusing. You'll see when we assemble this that it works out. So here's my cheese layer. I've mirrored that. This is that taco shell faux leather mat. We're not going to mirror that one. This one here, we're going to mirror. So all of our fillings get mirrored. And I always like to go through and just sort of drag the shapes away from the edge a little bit. There we go. And then we'll click back on our faux leather mat and just make a note of what size faux leather we need to cut to have this cut out from our material. So it looks like I need a piece of faux leather about 3 inches wide and 8 inches tall. So I'll click continue. And I'm using the faux leather paper thin setting. This is the setting that works with the fine point blade, which you'll see here. And I always use more pressure. If you don't have the faux leather paper thin selection highlighted here as a favorite like I do, you can click on Browse All Materials and search for it. Remember, if you're using an Explorer Air 2, you'll need to turn your dial to custom before you can search for this setting. But I've got it here all ready to go with more pressure. Now for these vinyl layers, you are going to use whatever material setting is recommended for your particular material. So I'm using Caesar EasyWeed, and for Caesar EasyWeed, I use vinyl or I use washi sheet with default pressure. But pay attention to your manufacturer's directions when you're cutting and choosing the material selection for your heat transfer vinyl layers. I'm often asked if you can use permanent vinyl for this project. You absolutely can. If you're using permanent vinyl, then you would not mirror any of the vinyl mats because permanent vinyl does not cut in reverse, only heat transfer vinyl. So I'm back on my faux leather mat. Let's hop over to my overhead camera and we'll get our mats cut out and our taco keychain assembled. So we'll start by cutting the faux leather mat. And in the mat preview screen, I saw that I need a piece of faux leather about 3 inches wide and 8 inches tall. So I'm just gonna use the grids on my mat to help me cut that piece out. And once I have it trimmed down to size, I'm going to turn it over so it's pretty side down in the same location on my mat that I saw in the mat preview screen. And I'll just rub with my fingers. And now I'm going to use blue painter's tape and tape around on all sides. And this is an important step. This helps to keep the material from shifting while it's cutting. This is important when you're using intricate designs or more detailed designs that you're cutting from faux leather and you're trying to get a good cut. So we don't need to do every single area, but I'll do most of it. There we go, that looks pretty good. We already have our faux leather paper thin setting with more pressure ready to go. So all I need to do is load the mat into the machine and begin the cut. So the cut has run one time. The faux leather paper thin setting is actually an automatic double cut. So the Cricut has cut this twice, but I always like to go and use a sharp weeding tool and lift up a corner of the cut to see if it went all the way through. This is really important so you don't waste material, because if you haven't unloaded the mat, you can repeat the cut and the Cricut will run that same cut again, actually twice, because of the double cut. So this looks pretty good, but if you wanted to rerun the cut, you would just press the cut button again. It's important that you don't unload that mat. If you're using the Cricut Joy, the rerun button will be on your screen as an option to click on in Design Space. But this looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and unload the mat. And I will carefully remove the little taco shape. And just as a reminder, this is a fold over keychain that works like this. And then the little shapes here will cut from the heat transfer vinyl and we will layer those inside of our little taco. So what I've done now is I've trimmed each of my vinyl pieces down to a smaller size to put on the green standard grip mat. And I'm going to just start going through one by one and cutting out the different vinyl layers for the taco keychain. So I'll start with the brown. I'm using the vinyl setting with default pressure for all of the vinyl mats. So I finished cutting out all of the vinyl mats for the taco keychain, and I've left a nice border of the clear transfer sheet around each of the vinyl layers. You don't want to trim too closely because when you press, the little trim line could press an indentation into your faux leather, and you don't want that. So we're going to take our little taco and flip it over, and we are going to be pressing everything on this side, and then this top will fold over so that you can see the fillings inside. So this is a good time to remind you to check the layering guide. It's on my blog at amyromeo.com. I'll link to the tutorial for this project for you. I have a guide that shows you each of the layers, sort of which one to do first and second. Also, you can look at the SVG in Design Space on your screen if you want a reminder. So what I'm going to do is start with the lettuce, and I'm going to just line up. For all of these layers, we are lining up on this edge, sort of the ruffled edge. We don't want to line up the bottom edge to the bottom because I purposely made these little layers to be pulled away from this edge. So when we fold over, we don't see the vinyl sticking out here. We want to glue here so that we have a nice edge there. So let me do that down here. It's a little easier. I'm just going to place this here, line that up with all the little lettuce grooves. That looks good. We've got that little gap there. That's where we'll have some glue. I'm going to cover using my little cover sheet. Again, I'm using a Teflon sheet. You could also use butcher paper or parchment paper. And I'm just going to use my Easy Press Mini set to low. You could also use a regular Easy Press set to about 265 degrees. If you only have a traditional heat press, you can do this project. You'll just want to experiment a little with the pressure because too much pressure from a larger heat press can flatten out your faux leather. So I'm just pressing for about maybe 10-12 seconds since this is a large piece of vinyl. If you're using a different heat press, like an Easy Press, you can just set it down. You don't have to move it like I am. So I'm going to keep my faux leather flat and I'm going to carefully peel away the cover sheet. If when you're peeling, the vinyl is lifting up or you see bubbles, just place it right back down and press again. But that looks pretty good. Can you see that? So you'll see there are still some parts of the faux leather that we can see, but we're going to cover that when we get to our little meat or bean layer. So that's going to go next. And again, I'm not lining up on this bottom edge, I'm lining up on the top edge. And here I'm making sure to cover up those little edges of faux leather that were still revealed after we placed the lettuce layer. So you can see all those little pieces of faux leather here are now covered up with our meat layer. So I'll cover again and press. Next comes the cheese layer. So this layer, we don't have anything to line it up to. We just want to sort of layer it so that you can still see the meat layer peeking out. So the meat layer is peeking out on this side, and we're not too close to the bottom on this side. Isn't that cute? So finally we'll add our tomato layer, and we want to just fold over here, make sure that we're able to see the tomatoes when we put them in our little taco. Do you see that? There's just a little bit of space here, so we want to make sure our tomatoes are peeking out and we can still see the cheese. So I'm going to do what's called dry fitting, which is just sort of placing it without pressing it yet, and then taking a look and seeing if I like how that looks. So there we can see the tomatoes and we can see the cheese. That looks pretty good. This one seems to be sticking out a little bit more than this one, so I might adjust that a tiny bit. So that looks great. So you may notice that the faux leather is starting to curl a little. That's because it's very warm. So what I want to do before any other steps is I want to just flatten that out again. So I want to put it on my flat surface, and I'm going to just cover it with my heat pressing pad momentarily to let that cool in a flat position. So our keychain has had just a moment to cool in a nice flat position. So I'm going to go ahead and get a heavy book for the next step. This is going to help us get a nice flat seamless edge on our keychain once we glue it. But first I want to put on the split ring key ring so I don't have to worry about that later. And I'm just going to fold up the edge of one of the sides of the keychain and slide on the ring. Then what I'm going to do is place the glue. I'm using the Fabri-Tac glue. What I'm going to do is place the glue on this side of the taco. I don't want to place it on this side because I might miss the mark of where this folds over and then have excess glue on this side. So if I only put glue on the part that folds over, then I know that I won't have any excess glue showing. So I'm just putting glue close to the edge, but not all the way to the edge, because the glue will seep out a tiny bit closer to the edge, and that's what we want to help us get a nice seamless edge. So I was careful not to get any glue on this bridge part because that's where our key ring is. And I will just move this out of the way as I fold over, and I'll just fold like this. And what we're doing is lining up that bottom edge, and we're lining up the side edge. So let me hold this up to show you. I've got this edge nice and matched up and the bottom. And because we didn't get that vinyl all the way to the end, you don't see the vinyl through on the bottom. Isn't that clever? So your faux leather might not be sticking together at the edges. You might still see that little seam, and that's okay, because what we're going to do now is use our heavy book and put it on top of the keychain. This is going to help the keychain dry in a nice, flat, smooth way with a very tight edge. So we'll let this dry for a few hours. Overnight is best, but I would give it several hours if you could, and then we'll come back and we'll attach our little tassel. So our keychain has been drying underneath our heavy book, and I'm just going to move that to the side, and that looks really good. Can you see how nice and tight that edge is? You can hardly tell that the two pieces are glued together. That looks great. So here there's a tiny bit of glue stuck on the edge. I can just try and wipe it off, or I can trim it with some small scissors. But that looks really good. So I think we're ready to attach our tassel. It's really easy to do. The tassel has a little ring at the top, but the ring is not large enough to slide onto the split ring key ring. So we just need to use a jump ring to connect the two. So I like this size, the 10mm. You could always go a little bigger if you wanted. I wouldn't go too much smaller, just so it has enough room for the tassel to move around. But I'm just going to use my flat nose pliers that I use for making earrings and jewelry. And I'm just going to open up the little jump ring, just like that. And I'll slide on the tassel, and then I'll slide it on to the keychain, and then just close it right back up. Isn't that a cute project? I hope you enjoyed this project and you were going to make some faux leather taco keychains yourself. If you liked the taco keychain, then you'll also love my taco earrings, also made with faux leather and heat transfer vinyl. It's one of the most popular designs in my shop, and I'll link to that for you in the description. If you like this project, I share faux leather keychain tutorials all the time. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell notification to be notified whenever I post a new tutorial. And I have a keychain tutorial playlist. Just keep watching and the next keychain project will appear for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.